What happened to me first was at Christmas of 1985. I had a shocking close encounter that left me completely undone because it appeared to be an encounter with aliens. It was very violent and totally unexpected. Came into the middle of a life that was basically unrelated to the UFO phenomenon in any way. And I spent months trying to understand what had happened to me from a medical standpoint, and eventually concluded that it was unexplained. I was very frightened by it and began to go out into the woods in the middle of the night to confront those fears. And the result of this was that the visitors returned to my life, and that began what has turned out to be a 10-year relationship with them. During that period of time, so much has happened outside of my experience. Along the lines of first the crop circles began to come, then things like the Mexican UFO videos began to be made, and now they're extracting implants from people. There's so much physical evidence of something strange going on that in 1986 I thought I had a medical problem. By 1989 I was fairly sure it was some kind of hallucinatory thing. Now, in 1996, if this isn't dead on real, I'll eat my hat. Only I have one question left. Who's doing this? Aliens or people? I don't know the answer yet. But I think that the presence of implants like the one I have in my own earlobe means all bets are off. This is real. It's physical. But what is it? Okay, the first event that happened to me, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was awakened by the fact that I felt like I was in motion. And I turned out to be in a little room full of what looked to me like gigantic insects, which were peering at me. I thought it was a nightmare, and I kept trying to wake up from the nightmare, but the nightmare was happening while I was awake. I was not home in my bed anymore. I was in an entirely different place. And they fired a needle into the side of my head. They did a rectal probe into my body. There was a voice, like an electronic voice, going, "What can we do to help you stop screaming?" It was an appalling experience. It was indistinguishable from real life, except as I understood real life at that time, it was something that couldn't happen. That was the first experience. Subsequently, there were many different types of experience, close approaches, encounters, other abductions that eventually led to a situation that I live in now, where there's a very formal structure to the encounters, and they come only at particular moments, like I needed some information for the last chapter of the book I'm writing. I needed it from the visitors. There was no one else who could give it to me. There was an encounter, and I received the information I needed for the book. That's the kind of thing that happens now. In other words, it's become communication. At first, it was just dead-on attack. Now it's much more communicative. I wouldn't say it's pleasant, but it surely is interesting.
And your state of consciousness at that moment is in the same domain we're in now?
Yeah, I was just like I am now, except I was scared. I was just terribly scared. I couldn't understand what had happened to me. Where had they come from? What were they? Why did it look like that? My fear at that time, even while I was having the experience, was primarily not a fear of them, but a fear of the fact that I could not get out of this, because I thought I had become psychotic and that I could not escape from a hallucinatory horror. Of course, the thing is, it was not a hallucination. That's very clear to me now. It's been 10 years of questioning and searching for me to come to the point where I would say that. However, you can't not say that now. There's too much evidence that someone is here. Of course it was real.
Can you kind of, on the Hopkins-Jacobs scenario?
On the being abducted and put on a table?
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Well, I get letters from people who've had that and have the table thing as part of their thing, and business about being a breeder and so forth, that's all got some substance to it, I'm sure, because we get so many letters about it. It's not the whole experience. It's a very complex experience. There's lots of different things happening to people besides that. But I think it's very valid to say that's probably part of it, yeah.
Can you kind of extrapolate on that? I mean, about the variety of experiences that are being reported?
Yeah, experiences range all over the lot. There are a lot of people who go different places in space-time or different places in time. There are people who encounter their own dead friends and relatives in the company of the visitors. There are encounters that appear to be related somehow to the psychology of the individual involved. There are sexual encounters that seem to have something to do not with breeding, but with some other kind of some other sexually related thing. There are straightforward breeder experiences where there are people who are having their sexual material affected in some way. I would agree with Hopkins and Jacobs about that. I think it's true. I mean, when I first started hearing about that, it hadn't happened to me, and I was very reticent about it because it seemed quite terrible. But I've met and talked face to face with people who have lived with this for years, and they're not lying. They're flat out not lying. We may not understand what that's really about, but it's very clear that what it looks like is that some kind of hybrids or something are being created by these people. That's what it looks like.
Well, we're not exactly totally and completely sure of what is going on with this phenomenon. What we do know is that we're looking at an alien agenda that is based on the physiological exploitation of one species by another species. In other words, people feel that sperm is being taken from them, eggs are being taken from them, babies are being implanted in them and then removed. All of this is for an agenda that is being kept essentially hidden from us. I look at this phenomenon with a certain amount of alarm. Other people feel that it's more benign than I might feel. But whatever it is being kept from us. I feel that if this were a phenomenon that were ultimately to help us, that we would probably know this and that the abductors would have made this clear, but this is not what has happened actually. And so I'm really very, very disturbed about what I've seen.
My sperm was extracted from my body. Sometimes I say the aliens harvested my sperm, and it was inseminated into another human being, and an embryo was created as a result of that series of events. Those experiences led to what I perceive as a higher order experiment which the aliens were conducting. They were successful in extracting sperm and creating a human embryo in the physical conscious world.
Their main concept was creating a hybrid breed. At least that's what they told me, that they were trying to create a race of people that could live in our atmosphere and in their atmosphere. And they had not yet produced that person. Now, on another occasion, I remembered being shown a baby that really favored my grandson a lot. If you would, give it the slant eyes, they weren't as big as their eyes, but it looked human. And I knew that this was my child, and I wanted to take that child with me, but they said that it would not be able to live in this atmosphere.
I've learned a big lesson in the past 10 years. If it looks like a wrench, call it a wrench, not a device. Call a spade in the thing. Until you understand another level of it, if it looks like they're making hybrids, let's say they probably are. Because this is so deceptive, this thing. You gotta stay with what it looks like. Keep it simple.
Is hypnosis ineffective? I mean, it's a tool. Now,
if it's used right, it's a good tool. But using it right is is something we really don't know enough about yet.
And can you tell us, Richard, something very quick?